After reading Chapter 8 carefully, answer the following questions. Where did Toby Crackett and the other criminals hide from the police? They hide in an old inn, in an old house, by the river, in an area of the poorest slums. Name the people who were in the house with Sykes before he tried to escape. Charlie Bates, Chitlin, Keggs, and Toby Crackett. What did Charlie do when he saw Sykes inside the old house? He jumped on him and began to fight with him. He shouted for help, "The killer is here." Where did Mr. Brownlow take Oliver 2 days later? And who else was there? He took Oliver to the town where Oliver was born. They stayed in a hotel there. Rose, Mrs. Mealy, Mrs. Bedwin, Dr. Losberne, Mr. Grimwig, Monks, Mr. and Mrs. Bumble were there. In what way was Oliver a thoughtful character? He remembered his orphan friends, suggested he should give them clothes, and teach them how to read and write. What did Edwin Leaford leave on his desk before he died? He left his will, and a letter to Agnes in which he asked her to keep the locket with her name on it. What did the will say? He wrote that some of his money should go to monks, half of his money should go to Agnes, and the other half should go to her child, only if he grew up as a person with good manners. What did Mr. and Mrs. Bumble say about the gold locket? They said they didn't sell a locket to monks, and that they had never seen him. But a servant from the workhouse said that she saw Mrs. Bumble take a gold locket and some papers from Nurse Sally when she died. What did Monks say about Rose? He said she was Egan's sister, or Egan's younger sister. Went to live with a poor family in Wales when her father died. Mrs. Mealy adopted her, and there are some papers which tell all this with Fagin. So, Rose was Oliver's aunt. Why did Oliver and Mr. Brownlow visit Fagin in prison? They did so as they wanted to know where Fagin had put the papers that Monks had given him. Important quotations. I will give £50 to the man who takes that man alive. Who said these words? Mr. Brownlow said these words. Who is the person the speaker talking about? Bill Sykes. When and where was that said? This was when Sykes was in a house in the slums. He had killed Nancy a week earlier. Mr. Brownlow was with a crowd of people outside the house trying to get in to arrest Sykes. And there's the road to the house where I lived with Mrs. Mann when I was little. Perhaps my orphan friends are still there. Who said these words? Oliver said these words. Where was the speaker? He was in a coach going back to the town where he was born. What did the speaker hope to do for the orphans? He hoped to give them clothes and teach them how to read and write. When he ran away, I helped the Artful Dodger to find him, so he could introduce him to my friend Fagin. Who said these words? Monks said these words. Why did the speaker want the other person to be a thief? He wanted so to prevent Oliver legally from inheriting his share of his father's money. Where did the speaker say this? He said this at the hotel in the town where Oliver was born. Find the mistake and correct it. Mr. Brownlow offered £50 to catch monks. Mr. Brownlow offered £50 to catch sykes. Rose was the aunt of Oliver and monks. Rose was the aunt of Oliver only. The father of Oliver and monks was Mr. Brownlow. The father of Oliver and monks was Edwin Leeford. Mrs. Bumble was seen taking something from Nancy. Mrs. Bumble was seen taking something from Nurse Sally. Mr. Bumble sold the gold locket to Fagin. Mrs. Bumble sold the gold locket to monks. Thanks for listening with Nafham. Learn easily and simply.